The thing that we did wrong is, well, in immigration's eye, is we basically lend our ear out to friends. You try to get tips from everybody. And it's not necessarily all good tips. And he said, any woman with a lump on her breast is urgent. It was actually casting a shadow. That's how big the lump was. And I was basically just lying there fighting for my life. And in the meantime, while all of this is going on, Carl is searching for jobs.
Yeah.
Applying here, applying there, doing this, doing that. And she's like, okay, so you're homeless. And I was like, you actually.
Welcome to all our subscribers and listeners, and a special, very big welcome to Vicky van Wiel. I'm excited to chat to you. We've come a very long way. It's been particularly exciting in some instances, particularly harrowing in other instances, and a lot of times with the people that I chat to and our clients, there's always been one or two things that have really been challenging, but I think a lot of those combined is within your story. So
Yes,
you're still smiling, which is wonderful to see. So I think the first thing I'd like to hear from you is, what made you decide to come to New Zealand?
Well, thank you, Dom. Thank you for having me on this podcast and sharing my story. And I hope this will help somebody somewhere, maybe somewhere in my story, you can learn something of it. Our journey started when our friends moved to New Zealand. And I actually thought I also wanted to go. But at the time, my husband, Carl, he didn't want to know anything about it. He was actually talking about, he's definitely not going there. It's the ring of fire. He's happy where he is. And but anyway, I decided to go and visit one of my friends. Yeah, I was there with my sister and her husband, and just to celebrate my 40th birthday. Carl didn't want to come with, and while I was here, I was just in awe with everything that I saw. Everything was so beautiful. Everything worked, and I just kept on sending photos to Carl, not really to convince him, but just to show him this beautiful country. And I think by the time I went back, Carl was a little bit more open to, okay, maybe he needs to also just come for a holiday and just see how it looks. And it is his birthday coming up again, so maybe we can come through for his birthday this time. And also my friend, it was her big 40th also, so we decided, all right, let's go for a holiday, let's go and visit, do the celebrations, and have a look-see. And when we came here, it was beautiful. Carl was in awe. We loved it. From there on, basically, we realized that, maybe we need to think about New Zealand because, my younger daughter, well, my daughter, I think she was about 6 or something. And she said she wants to become a farmer. And we thought, oh my word, she's not going to be able to become a farmer in South Africa. So we need to really rethink, what we're doing. But anyway, long story short, we thought, what, maybe we can do this on our own. Because Carl got a job offer, and we thought, no, we will maybe be able to do this on our own. So we applied, but unfortunately, it didn't went as we thought, and we realized there that we needed help. Essentially, you always think, all right, where can I save some money, and where can I do this and that? But luckily, we met another friend there, and he said, you know what, you can't put money on immigration. It's really an investment. Pay what you have to pay, do what you have to do. So we did that. Luckily, we knew of you, we contacted you, and you helped us with that. At that stage, Carl was very, very ill with chickenpox. And I didn't know how we are going to, because the work was in Tapo. And so we had to move there for the job and whatever. But so it was a challenge on its own, but we came through it. we got the visa. Luckily, we went to Taupo and everything was fine. We were very happy. Taupo was really a good match for us. It was a holiday little town type of scenario. So we were familiar with, people walking around in their bathing suits and, so it was nice. It was nice. Carl loved his job and everything. Yeah.
I think from memory, that first visa, because you guys lodged the initial visa applications and immigration were quite harsh on the queries. So from memory, there was about 4 or 5 strong worded comments, and I was still quite concerned about it because it was a matter of, there was a lot of subjectivity in that letter, according to me, and it was a difficult one to get across the line. So, but you guys were still in New Zealand at that time, right?
Yes, we're still in New Zealand, and now my husband is a qualified graphic designer. He had to provide significant evidence. Just a diploma wasn't enough. So we needed evidence that he had his own business back in South Africa. It was just before December. So we had to get information from people where some of them are already on holiday. So that was quite hard work to get all of that sorted. But I think the thing that we did wrong is, well, in immigration's eye, is we basically lend our ear out to friends. I suppose that's what you do, when you go to another country, whether for holiday or immigration, whatever, you try to get tips from everybody. And it's not necessarily all good tips. Our friends told us, listen, just get your medical certificates, just get your police clearance, get everything sorted, and then you have it. If you want to stay longer, then at least you've got everything you need. So initially, when we did that, immigration didn't like the fact that we've already done that. So it didn't look in our favor.
It was touch and go, or you guys might have, had to leave and go back, or and then reapply again, get another job offer, because I don't think that the company would wait that long for you for another job offer. But fortunately, it came through, which is really good, because then at least you had the 3-year visas for you guys to remain in the country, which is sort of okay, now we've got 3 years, now we need to start looking at how do we keep you here. You contacted me again around March. I think it was just before lockdown, surprisingly enough. You guys were obviously working, settling in, your daughter was going to school, things were settling down nicely. I think you were doing real estate in Taupo, and you were enjoying it thoroughly, which is great. Although immigration had then put the residence applications on hold, we still were looking at what could we actually do to get to the point where we can apply for residence. And at the end of that consultation, I'll never forget your words. You and Carl sort of looked at one another, and you gave me, what I think is really, really not good news. I'll leave it for you to tell your own story then.
Yes. Yeah, when we had that chat, we were in lockdown at that stage. COVID just hit the country, and we were in lockdown. And during that period, I found a lump on my breast. Yeah, it was quite scary. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't go anywhere, really. I just phoned the nurse, and she said, oh, no, it's fine. You can just, I'll just give you some antibiotics. But it was quite scary. You try to stay positive, and you try to think it's not that bad. So, yeah, then by the time we chatted, we already knew that something's going on. I need to get this mammogram. So just when lockdown lifted, I immediately went for a mammogram. And in fact, the radiologist was furious. He said, why didn't you come earlier? And then I told him, well, we were in lockdown, and they said it's only for, urgent patients. And he said, any woman with a lump on her breast is urgent.
It's emergency.
And so he did a biopsy immediately. And then basically in June, I found out that I had grade 3 triple negative breast cancer, which is not really a cancer you want to have, because I didn't really know that you get different types of breast cancers. I thought breast cancer is breast cancer, but apparently the one that I got wasn't a very good one, because if it is triple negative, it means that they don't really know how to treat it. So all that they really can do is just hit you with everything they've got. They actually call it the sandwich protocol. So top and bottom do whatever they can. So yeah, from there, I mean, then residency just became just went to the back of our minds, you know. I must say, I did feel about a year before that, I did feel, you know, tired and didn't really feel good, but I was too afraid to really go to the doctor to check out everything because I was worried that they're going to say, listen, you've got maybe something, and then it will affect our residency. And there it did happen anyway. But what the problem was, it was basically at the end of our work visa. So our work visa was just for 3 years. So we were supposed to then apply then for our next work visa. But I thought it would be fine. You know, we're fine. It's just, you know, we just need to deal with this cancer. Luckily, Carl is still working. There was talks about maybe, you know, restructuring going on in his company, but we couldn't focus on that. We just had to focus on me trying to get healthy. But yeah, when I went to the oncologist, I thought he was just going to say, listen, it's going to be very easy. We're just going to do a little operation, get that lump out, radiation therapy, and Bob's your uncle, you finished. And then we sat there and he gave us the whole protocol of what they're going to do. And we were like, okay, this is not what we thought it was going to be. You know, our treatment started quite very fast. And because by that stage, the lump was already about 3 centimeters, it was actually casting a shadow. That's how big the lump was. And it wasn't there the day before. And then just the next day, that lump. I received quite a heavy dose of chemotherapy. And then within the first couple of weeks, I lost all my hair, my, you know, everything. Yeah, it was quite tough. I couldn't do anything. I was basically just, you know, Carl or a friend just took me to chemo. And then when we got back, immediately I had to go into the, you know, bed. And I was basically just lying there fighting for my life because the chemo was just too harsh. And it made me very tired and all of those symptoms that you get with the chemo.
Yes.
And basically, Carl was running the whole house. He was, I mean, he starts work very early, and then he comes home about 4 o'clock. But he used to quickly just come in during lunchtime, also just check up on me, make sure I'm fine. I did have by that time my cousin that also moved to Tapo, and she was able to come and just make sure in the mornings I'm okay, and then in the evenings I'm okay. But the rest Carl really had to do. I actually don't know how he did it. I think when you are somebody going through cancer, you're basically just fighting for your life, and you don't really realize. I don't know. Actually, I can't remember too much. But of course, Carl had to do the washing. He had to make sure that Kayla was ready for school, and yeah, so he really had a huge job on his shoulders that he had to do. Yeah, and then from there, I was scheduled to get a double mastectomy, the removal of the breasts, in December. So I knew I was up for that operation. And so also a lot of things, you know, that goes on in your head. But it's fine, you know, we have to do what we have to do. So I think at the end, I still want to see my daughter when she gets married. So
yes. It was around about the same time, I think in the end of 2020 as well, that the business that Carl worked for closed as well.
Yes. I think it was about November. He received a letter to say that the business that he works for is going to close.
Yes.
And they are going to move to Australia. And, you know, if we want to, we can maybe move with them. So we thought about that. I mean, when you're in survival mode, you just do what you have to do. But when it came to the push and when they sat down and had interviews and decided what they're going to do, the company, they decided that it's going to, for the company, it's going to cost them too much money, seeing that I've got cancer, to get us over there. If it was just Carl, it would have been fine. But with me and Kayla, it would have been just too much of a burden for the company, unfortunately, as harsh as it sounds. So that meant that Carl was then retrenched. Yeah, by that time, of course, I also lost my job because I couldn't work. I was just basically lying in bed. So yeah, so then we found out that Carl basically also lost his job. That made us realize that if I don't have income, he doesn't have income, we won't be able to stay longer in our rental house. Yeah, we were faced with, okay, December, he's going to finish at work. So we basically have until the end of December to pack up the whole house and then move out. But I also had to have a huge surgery done within that time frame. And I didn't know how I was going to be able to pack up the whole house with the surgery. Luckily, one of my good friends from Auckland came down and she basically helped me to put my whole house in a box. It was quite daunting, but I mean, what can you do? We just focused on our goal, and that is to try and stay in New Zealand because we didn't want to go back to South Africa. I mean, I couldn't go on the plane in the state that I was. I just had major surgery. So there wasn't really option to go back to South Africa. And I was too afraid to go back to South Africa. I wasn't sure that I was going to get the medical treatment I needed.
Yes. I mean, this was still sort of in COVID time, if you think about it, because we seem to think it was just 2020, but COVID was carrying on quite strongly even through to 2021. So, and then we had the issue where your visas were actually running out, and Carl not having a job anymore actually wasn't meeting the conditions of his visa. So we had to look at what is the way that we can actually just keep you in the country. Firstly, because you were still undergoing treatment, you were still seeing doctors. So you guys moved up to Auckland at that time, from memory.
Yes.
And then we applied for you to at least remain in the country. The difficulty was we weren't sure how long you needed to remain, just for at least your for treatment purposes, because we applied in January 2021, and from memory the appointment was in February, and it was dependent on the outcome of that appointment with your doctors as to how much longer you still needed treatment or where we were going at that time. So there was a lot of uncertainty in that time. But I do remember both you and Carl were fixated on staying in New Zealand, but mostly fixated on your health. Yes.
So we thought, if we could at least just stay so that I can finish my treatment, because the Protocol X, the sandwich treatment that they talk about, is chemotherapy before, then the removal, the bilateral mastectomy, and then I had to go on chemo pills again. And then after that, I need to do radiation therapy. Yeah, and then I did the chemo pills. Through that, I realized, my daughter Kayla wasn't on a student visa. She was just on a visitor visa. And so I couldn't enroll her in school. And because we didn't have an address really, I couldn't really sign her up for online school or whatever.
At the same time, sorry, Carl also still didn't have a job. So to paint the scenario, Carl is jobless. You guys are staying with friends, flatting with friends, if you like, because you obviously didn't have income at all. You were still fighting for your life, if I can say it bluntly, and Kayla couldn't go to school.
Couldn't go to school, Yes, I just went to the stationery shop to just buy a mathematics book, a few books to try and educate her. So I was trying to just educate her. I don't know where I found the strength to do that, but I did it. Yes. And I actually remember when we were sitting in front of the radiation doctor, she asked us, all right, so what is your address? And we were like, no, actually, we don't really have an address. We're staying at this friend's, and then next week we'll be going to that friend's. And she's like, okay, so you're homeless. And I was like, yeah, actually.
I'll just
I
put
said,
that on as well. I mean, yeah,
yes, I
that's the
thought,
least of your
and I
worries
thought,
then.
oh, yeah, that's the power of positive thinking. We think we're fine. Meantime, we're
Yes.
homeless. That's essentially what we were. We moved to Auckland to stay with friends. We thought we were going to stay there for a month, and then Carl's going to get another job. It's
Yes.
going to be fine.
Yeah.
I'm going to continue with my treatments. Yes, and then a month started going to 2 months. We were basically couch surfing from there on.
Yeah.
Because really, if you think about it, we three people living with other people. It's a bit of a burden. We're not paying any rent because we didn't really have the money, but we had some funds to pay for our own food, and yeah, and then with the radiation therapy. By that time, we went on the medical treatment visa, and we had to come up with $20,000 to confirm that we have the money to pay for this radiation therapy.
Mm, mm.
Yeah, so that was also a challenge on its own. Yeah, I also ended up back in the emergency department because of the chemo pills that I was drinking. It basically made a knot it made my stomach turn into a knot. So I couldn't eat for about a month. I was very, very thin. I lost about, I don't know, 75% of my muscle mass because I couldn't eat anything. It took them about 3 weeks to figure out what's wrong with me. And then at that time, they started giving me I think they call it a PPN or a PPT or something line. So I was very weak, very frail. There I thought, okay, you know, I don't know about the cancer, but this stomach thing is really taking me down. But I just stayed positive and I just said, no, in my head, I decided I'm going to be healed from cancer. I'm not going to die from a stomach twist. So I need to get out of here. And I think I was in the hospital for about a month. And then after that, I had a bit of the doctors gave me a bit of a rest. And then I started with the radiation therapy. And in the meantime, while all of this is going on, Carl is searching for jobs,
Yeah.
applying here, applying there, doing this, doing that, really trying to, we really tried to reinvent the wheel. We tried everything.
And it was a difficult time. It was really a difficult time in 2021 because there's still people losing
Yeah.
their jobs. A lot of companies
Yes.
closing because of COVID. So it wasn't like under
Yes, yes.
normal market circumstances, a person thinks back now looking for a job, that shouldn't be too difficult. But back in 2021 and 2020, it was extremely difficult because there were a lot of people
Yes.
losing their jobs. The borders were not yet open. So there were a lot of
Yeah.
people having to leave because they were losing their jobs and no jobs to find again. So job offers were not
Yes.
something that you could find easily. So he kept
Yes.
going. He kept going. So that was already 6 months into 2021.
Yes. And I remember Kayla because I'm sitting now with a teenager, 15, 14, how old was she? 14, 15. I was just trying, because they say with cancer, the kids can either go one or the other way, very depressed or very fighting against everything, like rebelling or
Rebellious.
whatever. So my focus was to just also keep Kayla mentally fine. And I'm thinking we lived out of a suitcase for a year. We were sleeping on basically right next to each other, and and just to keep Kayla positive, I told her, listen, here's my phone, here's Pinterest. I want you to start start a pin board and start to look at how you want your new room to look like when we are through all of this. And when we move into our new house, I want you to start a pin board and, get some ideas. How do you want your curtains? How do you want just how do you want
Yeah.
your room to look like? Now, just to give her some hope and to
Yes.
encourage her that, all right, we're not going to stay on top of each other forever. There is going to be an end to all of this madness.
Yes.
And just to encourage her. And that really helped. I must say that really helped her with everything that was going on. Kayla also just one morning woke up and she couldn't see in her one eye. And I remember I had to take her to the emergency department because everything was locked down. And, they were looking for, all right, on what visa are you? They wanted to know about the visas. And I'm thinking, listen, my daughter just got blind in her one eye. Why are we talking about visas? But of course, we need to talk about the visas. So she had to go for an MRI also. Yeah, so it was just a lot of things on top of each other. But luckily, I think it was July, I was just busy with the radiation therapy, I think. And then luckily, actually somebody phoned Carl and said, listen, I've heard about your situation and I want to give you a job offer. And interesting, after all the jobs that Carl applied for, this job, he didn't even apply for this job. It was just a person talking to another person and
learning about his skill set. Learning about his skill set and
everything. And he said, listen, I want to employ you. Yeah, so he received a job offer. Yeah,
that was in July. So from the January to the July, he was job hunting. Yeah, okay.
He was still job hunting. Yeah. In fact, thinking back, my mom and dad were still in South Africa, so they couldn't really help us, and they are pensioners, so they couldn't help us financially. I think for the beginning part, Carl did receive some redundancy money. So we used that basically to buy food and to pay for some of the medical things. But of course, it finished at a certain stage. My dad then decided to open up a Go Get Fund Me page for us. Yeah, and people started donating some money to us. And even people in South Africa that we knew, it was just amazing. It just helped us keep going. Even with the radiation therapy, because we needed that money. We needed about 20K to do it. I mean, it's not a question of doing the radiation therapy and then paying for it. We had to show it before they got started.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to then, luckily Carl received a job offer in July. And luckily also just in time for the new fast track resident visa. I was reading through it and I saw there that they said, if you were in the country for 3 years before the 29th of September and you have a valid work visa or you are in the process of applying for a work visa, then you are eligible.
Yeah, you have lodged the application. Yes.
Yes. And I thought, wow, I think we might be eligible. Yes, go, phone her. Yeah, so wow, that was just amazing,
It was. It was really the sunshine after a year and a half year and 3/4 of really difficult time. Yeah.
Yes. But I think still at the back of my mind, I was thinking, because by that time I already know that New Zealand don't really like people that had cancer.
I don't say they don't like people that had cancer. There are a list of conditions, health conditions that are deemed to impose significant costs on the country and the healthcare system. So
so in saying that, I knew that it was still going to be a challenge. Maybe not for Carl and Kayla, but for me. There's a lot of evidence that we need to provide to show that I am cancer-free. But yeah, I think by that time I was just relieved that, Carl found a job and we are moving into some sort of direction. And the job that he found was in Wellington. We've never been in Wellington, but we were just happy to still stay in New Zealand.
That's why I
Yeah,
have
so
the picture of Wellington
I
behind
see.
me
Yeah, it's
in
beautiful.
honor of the Van Wiels who are in Wellington.
Then Wellington, we had to go and look for a rental, but we couldn't because again it was locked down again. So and nobody wanted to really secure a rental online. They wanted to see you in person. And then again, out of the blue, a lady phoned me and said, "Listen, you don't know me, but I know your aunt in South Africa. We are actually very good friends, and we live in Wellington. And we want you to save your money. Don't come with the car, get a rental, whatever. We want you to just fly straight to Wellington. We will come and pick you up. You can stay with us. You can borrow our car and then look around for wherever you want to stay, you know." No, we were so blessed with this lady just phoning out of the blue.
Wow.
And I remember when we arrived in Wellington, we didn't really know who to look out for. With a very nice house in the right school zone for Kayla, because that was my next focus, you know, to get Kayla to go to school. I think at that stage, Kayla was on a student visa and Paul was on a work visa. And I can't remember on what visa I was. Maybe still on a visitor visa or an interim visa. I don't know. I've been on so many visas. So yes, our main focus was basically to secure a nice school for Kayla, you know, where she
Yeah.
can find herself again, you know.
Yeah.
The rental that we ended up getting, our next door neighbor ended up being a couple that also have a daughter, also the same age as Kayla, also starting high school, college for the first time. So she also doesn't know anybody. So we arranged for them to meet each other. And so first day of school, they went together. There was a few stress with the school also because going back to March 2020, March or May, when we had our discussions of applying for residency, we realized that we needed to look at Kayla's passport to renew it.
Yep. Yep.
And then, of course, a day after our meeting, the wheels started falling off, you know, with the cancer and the job loss and everything. By the time we finally came to Wellington, everything was fine. We realized, oh my word, Kayla's passport is already 2022 and she needs to go to school. Immigration wants the passport, otherwise she can't go to school again. And I was like, oh my word, what are we going to do? She needs to go to school. She can't stay home for 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah. So what most people don't realize is if you're South African, you have to plan at least 2 years ahead of time if you're in New Zealand to for a passport, because it could take 9 months to get an appointment with the High Commission. It could take a few weeks before you can actually get through to them to be able to make the appointment. Then it could be a 9-month lead time once you've been there and had your fingerprints taken. It could take another 9 months or more before you actually get your passport. That's why, you know, you say that it could take so long. It's not necessarily the case with kids, but absolutely with adults, you've got to plan this well ahead of time. It's not like any other country where you can get a passport within the same month. So Kayla was able to put into effect all her plans for her bedroom as well in her new house. I'm sure that was very exciting.
Yes, and that's what I told Carl. I said, listen, we only have his salary, but we really need to focus now on Kayla's bedroom. So we took her to the shop and but I must say, Kayla is not, she's very humble girl. She's not very into, she knew the circumstances, but she wanted a whole nature theme for her room, you know, with the leaves hanging from the wall and all sorts of things like that. So we did that.
Nice.
And so that was our first priority, is just to get her room sorted and just get her settled in. I remember Winnie sending me an email to ask, listen, Vicky, immigration is asking regarding Kayla's passport. If you can just give us a reason, why didn't you apply for this earlier? And then I saw the email and I thought, okay, no, it's fine. I think I do have a reason why we didn't apply. Put down the email, I put down all the dates and stuff, you know, of the course of events. And I sent the email to Winnie. I'm sure she was like, oh my word, okay. I didn't think she was going to. That is basically what happened, you know. It's not that we went on holiday and we forgot.
Yes.
It's just that it was just a unfortunate events happening after each other.
Well, it's a fight
And
for survival. That's and it's not just,
yes,
I'm not saying that flippantly either. It's really a
yeah,
fight for survival. So
for
fight for
survival,
survival for your
yes.
life, fight for
Yeah.
survival to remain in the country. It's fight for
Yes.
survival for your kid to get an education.
Yes.
Financially, a big strain on the family as well. So
Yes.
that's why I said in the beginning, your story has one of a little bit of everything,
Of
or a
everything,
lot of
yes.
everything, a lot of
Yes,
everything. So
and I must say, in a way, the story helped me a little bit because I decided in January when we then moved to the rental in Wellington, I decided, all right, listen, all right, now we are here. I know that the South African Embassy is in Wellington. So we're just going to be bold and brave, and we're just going to walk up straight in that office. And I'm just going to ask somebody if they can please just help me because this is my situation. We went in there, and the lady at the desk said, well, sorry, you don't have an appointment. We can't help you. And I said, listen, it's fine. We are willing to sit here on the couch until somebody can maybe just quickly have a brief word with us. And then we sat down, and I think she noticed, all right, they're not going to go anywhere. Maybe I must get somebody. And then a lady came in and she sat down, and I said, listen, I just want to ask you, I know that a lot of parents come to you and ask for their kids' passports, and they all have a story and a reason why you should help them. But I think you haven't heard a story like mine. So I'd like to tell you, just about our story and if you are maybe willing to help us. That same day, 5 o'clock, we got all the documents signed and sealed. Yeah, it was just a blessing again. And everything was sorted. They sent it away. And I think we received Kayla's passport in February or something. It was like, wow, like it was just very fast.
can be done. Can be done.
Yes, yes, yes.
So when you originally contacted me, you were a dressmaker / wedding dressmaker, not just a dressmaker, wedding dressmaker back in South Africa.
Yes.
What are you doing at the moment? Because I think that's also very evident of how you've changed over the years, how you've sort of been sculpted in just changing not only your mindset, but I think the way that you are and the things that you're prepared to do now after everything that you've gone through.
Yes, well, in South Africa, I used to own my own bridal salon. So I was actually a wedding dress designer. I'm a qualified fashion designer. Yeah, so that's what I actually did. And then when I came to New Zealand, nobody was really getting married. So I reinvented myself. I studied real estate. I liked working with people and dressing up. It was just all in line with what I was used to in South Africa. And then going through all of the ordeal and everything, losing everything, having to restart again. If you can start something new, do something new, then, why not? While here in Wellington, I reinvented myself again. At this stage, I am doing big outdoor blinds and roofs. So you would say that basically I have trade in my high heels for tradie boots. And instead of working with rolls of fabrics, I am now working with rolls of PVC and mesh blinds. So totally different. And actually, I like it. I like it. Coral, my husband, is helping me part-time. Yeah, it's just wonderful to be able to work together and just to do something different and to get out there, feel the sun on your skin, see all the beauty that New Zealand has to offer.
So
Definitely.
you're helping with the measurements as well as the installations, is that right?
Yes. So what I do is I get leads towards clients, then I make an appointment with them, then I go and see them. I've got my measuring tape. So I take photos, I take the measurements, and I discuss the products, how it looks. From there, I give them a quotation. And then if they're interested, then Carl, my husband, goes with me back to the client. We take more formal measurements. We enter a job card, we send it through to head office, and then they manufacture the blinds. It's custom manufactured blinds. It's outdoor blinds. So we're talking about 5 meter blinds.
Sure. Yeah.
And then what they do is they ship it down to Wellington, and then we pick it up and then we install it at the client's house. Yes, I also help with installing. In fact, Carl educated me, he trained me. He had a little whole setup in the garage with tools and to show me how the drill works and where to do what. So yes, Carl put me on a little course. You know, he trained me really how to work with power tools.
Fantastic.
I used to be scared of heights. I'm not scared of heights anymore. You would find me on a ladder on a Saturday morning or on top of a roof with my tradie and my high vis on. Just amazing. It's just amazing if you are willing to open up for new adventures, to find yourself and just to realize, wow, who is this person? Why didn't I know that I can actually do these things, in South Africa? But anyway, totally new opportunities, new adventure.
Yeah, and out of your comfort zone, eh? Totally out of your
Totally out
comfort
of
zone.
my comfort zone, yes. And then also, I think what I also like about it is I can just be myself. I don't have to be prim and proper and perfect, like the real estate. I had to be perfect. Everything had to be perfect. And I've realized in my journey that nothing is perfect and it's not important. So yeah, I really enjoy doing it, the blinds. And then also, I mean, you can't go through all of this and not give back a little bit or do something. So I am currently also volunteering at Christians Against Poverty. And so what I do, I got training as a debt coach. Basically, what we do is we help clients that really live in a bit of a chaos scenario, financially or health-wise. And so then what I do is I visit them at their house. I talk a little bit about their situation. I talk a little about my situation and how I basically got through it. And there's a lot of levels, I can talk about health-wise, just encourage them financially wise. I can also talk about that because I've lost everything in my, we've lost everything and we have regained it again. So yes, there's a lot of things that I can help just by power of telling your story. But what we do is then we get paperwork from them and then we send that through to head office, which is in Auckland. And then there is a lot of accountants, attorneys, so they work out a budget for these people. And then they send it to me, and then I present the budget to them, a new budget. And that's basically just a budget to help them to get out of their debt. It's just amazing how you can see how people's lives are turned for the better. We had a client that was also living in a car and he's got his house now. It's just amazing to see people growing through the power of your story. Well, luckily I've got Carl. He's doing the 7 to 4 job. He's enjoying it. He's really enjoying it. About, I don't know, most of the people that he work with they're all Afrikaans. So it's nice to hear him having meetings and it's in Afrikaans.
Yeah.
He loves his job. And that enables me to do part-time a bit of the blinds and then also part-time do a bit of volunteering and just, give back to the community a little bit. And even if you think about it, I mean, we don't know anybody in Wellington. We didn't know anybody in Wellington. But just through the volunteering, being part of the community, we started meeting new people. And so it's just a total different environment where we are at. Actually, we are much better off than we were in Tapo. We thought everything was perfect in Tapo, but I realize now that we didn't really know what better really looks like.
Yeah.
So we really enjoy Wellington. I know some people complain a little bit about the wind, but I must say we've had good weather, actually better weather than Auckland. Also, I think Wellington for me is a mixture of Tapo and Auckland. Again, city, holiday, destination.
Yeah.
So
a little bit of a mix, yeah. When you were going through all this, clearly you had to have times that are really, really difficult.
Yes.
How did you remain positive, or what saw you through it? I know that you mentioned you were ill most of the time. You don't even know what Carl did or didn't do. Maybe I should,
Yes.
but at the same time, you had to keep going. You had to
Yes.
still be able to function. So how did you remain positive throughout that period?
Well, we basically through everything we still focused on the goal, our main goal. We basically started living day by day. I think that's the only thing you can do is rather just, so they do say sometimes you need to step a little bit back before you can go forward again. And that's actually what we did. We basically, because there was a lot going on in our heads. So we really needed to just go day by day,
Yeah.
all right, what is today's things that we need to sort out? And also our faith. I think our faith gave us the courage and the strength and the hope basically to carry on. We couldn't have
Yeah.
done it without that because we didn't really have anything else. We
Yes.
lost everything. So we only had our faith, and that basically pulled us through. That gave us the courage and the strength. But if you are in a bit of a flight and fight situation, best is to just focus on today, sort today out, and then you'll deal with tomorrow. Tomorrow
Yes.
brings its own worries. So just focus on today because otherwise it's just too much.
I remember talking with you and Carl sometime during this challenging time period of yours. But what you mentioned there was you do want to remain in New Zealand. You really want residence badly. At that stage, we didn't know how that was going to play out or how it will happen. But you also resigned yourself to the fact that if you had to go back to South Africa, it was meant to be. And I think that took
Yes.
a huge load off your shoulders to
Yes,
not
true.
still worry about that as well, because it's not something that you
Yes.
could have done anything
Yes.
about.
Yes, I think it does take the pressure off because I think throughout our journey we realized that we are not in control of anything. You think you are in control, but you're not in control. If we can stay in New Zealand, that's obviously what we really want to do, then fantastic. But we just felt, we had to do what we had to do. If we had to go back, then it's fine. We're sure things will work out. You just have to make it work. That's all.
Yeah.
You just have to
Yeah.
make it work. Yes, yes.
And along the way, you've also scored a cat, I believe.
Yes, our cat basically just came to us when we were living in Taupo. Yeah, something happened to him. He fell out of a tree or something. We took him to the vet, and the vet said, "Hey, listen, are you the owners of this cat?" And we said, "No, we're not. The cat just came to us." And the vet said, "Well, he's got a chip in his. Coming from South Africa, you don't really chip your cats." So we didn't really think of the chip. We did put on Facebook, whose cat is this, blah, blah, blah. Actually, our neighbor came forth and she said she thinks it might be her cat because she got a similar cat for her daughter, but that cat ran away. So she already got her a new cat that looks like that cat. So she would be happy if we can keep this cat. But anyway, long story short, so we kept the cat. But then when we lost the house and we had to move out of the house, we had to go to Auckland. So of course our cat had to go with us because this cat really supported me through cancer. You should have seen him. Oh my word, he moved wherever I moved. This cat moved. He never left me out of his sight. When I had to go to the bathroom, then he comes with. Also, then with Kayla, because it's actually Kayla's cat, we couldn't decide on a name for the cat, but I had to call him when he has to come for his food. So I just said, "Listen, Cat Cat." So that's his name, Cat Cat. Cat Cat. Anyway, so we had to move to Auckland to our friends, but he couldn't move with us because they have a cat. And I arranged with my cousin because they don't have any pets. I asked him, "Listen, can our cat stay with you just for the while until we get a house?" I didn't know that we were going to be for a whole year on the road, but we spoke to our cat. We told him, "Listen, this is what's going to happen now. We're moving to Auckland and you're going to stay with another family. But when everything is sorted out and we find a new house, then we will come and pick you up and then we will bring you with us. And that cat stayed. He stayed there at that house. He stayed there the whole year. We went to visit him if we could. If I couldn't, but Carl took Kayla to visit him, just play with him and kept on talking to him. And yeah, so then we finally the day came, we bought him a travel carrier and we put it there the day before and we said, listen, here's your travel box. We are on our way. We are going to our own house. And he went into it and he lied in it and he just got a little bit cozy. Next day we picked him up and we drove all the way to Wellington. He didn't complain. He was just there, very happy. And then when we arrived in Wellington, we told him, listen, this is now your new house. And I actually took him around because we live quite high up. So there's quite a steep hill around us. So I took him all around the property to show him where the perimeter is. I said, all right, this is where you're supposed to be. This is where we're at. Open up the cage, and he got out of the cage and he just lied on the floor, like relaxed. He's home.
So I'm really pleased that the cat is still with you. I'm glad that Kayla's back at school, that she's got a room of her own now, that you guys are settled in Wellington, that you have residence, but most of all, that you are healthy again, Vicky. Really, really pleased. There's a lot of lessons in your story, so I hope that everybody has listened to the end. I do appreciate you sharing it with us as well, and I do appreciate that you are giving back to the community as well. It's always wonderful for me to hear that my clients are not only successful, but they're also helping others.
Yes. No, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. And but thank you so much for you and for Winnie and the whole team. If it wasn't for you, I don't know if we would be able to sit here. So thank you so much for you guys, also all the hard work and all the effort that you put in. I know you've also been through a lot with the COVID, a lot of clients asking a lot of questions, and thank you that you still had the time to look at our situation and to see us through.
It's been a huge pleasure.